Do you have congestion during the day? Do you have nasal drip? Do you wake up with a headache and you're unsure where it is coming from? Do you suffer from allergies? Do you suffer from signs and symptoms that you're kind of unaware where and why they're occurring in your body? Well, this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you today about histamines. You may not have heard about histamines, but this may be the cause of your symptoms that you're unaware of where they are coming from. It's exactly why I want to talk today's episode, go into detail about what are histamines, signs that you may have histamine intolerance, and then 5 foods to avoid and include if you have intolerance to histamines. Let's get into it. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I absolutely love, and appreciate your support. For any of you who don't know me, my name is Mihaela. I'm a qualified naturopath. And today on Mondays, I'm here to provide you with simple, savvy, and sustainable health hacks to optimize your health. And this is part of the Natural Health Podcast, which is available on Spotify, YouTunes, whatever you want to call it, and also in a video version here on YouTube. Well, today's episode is going to be quite an interesting one because I'm going to go into detail about histamines. You may have heard about histamines just roughly in regards to some foods being high in histamines, but you may not be actually aware what histamines may be doing to your health. That's right, histamines may be causing you harm and affecting your health and giving you some weird signs and symptoms that you're unsure about and you wouldn't have known that this is because of histamines. To start off, I wanted to go into a little bit of a detail about histamines. It might be a little bit sciencey, but why not? Let's get into it. Let's understand a little bit about what histamines are, so then we know how we can treat a histamine intolerance if that is what you have, right? So histamines is a biogenic amine which occurs naturally to various degrees in many foods. Normally, dietary histamines are rapidly detoxified, right? They're usually removed from the body if we have histamines in our body by oxidase, DAO, which I'll talk a lot about today, which is DAO. It's a scavenger of extracellular histamines and is the main enzyme. There's other enzymes, but this is the main enzyme responsible for the metabolism of ingested histamines. Impaired histamine degradation based on reduced DAO activity may cause symptoms mimicking an allergy reaction and can include headaches and so forth, which I'll talk about soon, what the signs and symptoms may be that you may have a histamine intolerance. But I'm going to talk about a few of the histamine receptors and what they are for. Because if we understand what the receptors are for, we'll be able to understand what effects histamine has on our body. So we have the H1 receptor, which I believe is histamine 1 receptor, right? Which is found mainly in the central nervous system as well as the peripheral nervous system. When activated in the central nervous system, they produce a number of effects. One such effect being the firing of hypothalamic neurons that are active when you are awake. This is why when you take antihistamines, what happens? You get a bit drowsy and you fall asleep. So this is, now you understand how the antihistamines work, because this receptor works in the nervous system, right? And when it's activated in the central nervous system, they produce an active effect when you're awake. So it's kind of like they make you awake. That's why when you take an antihistamine, you're kind of drowsy and you feel a little bit sleepy and so forth, right? Okay, so histamine's effect on the PNS, which is the peripheral nervous system H1 receptor, is completely different. These receptors are found on smooth muscle on the inside blood vessel. This is the receptor that gets activated when you have an allergic reaction, right? Histamines bind to the H1 receptor in the blood vessels, cause vasodilation. So what does that mean? Increases blood vessels, increases blood flow, and increased permeability. That's key to take a note of. This is what causes hives as well as redness and swelling, skin and inflammation. It also causes smooth muscle contraction, leading to difficulty of breathing, asthma, potentially life-threatening anaphylaxis, right? So this is the H1 receptor. And you may have heard a number of people say to test your histamine, what you do is you get your skin, right? You get nails and you scratch yourself, right? And then you see here, as you can see, I don't have lines coming up. If you're watching, I'm not having any lines come up here, right? But if you had too much histamine in your body, what would happen in your blood is that part of your skin would go red. And this kind of makes sense with us talking about the H1 receptor of the blood vessels causing vasodilation, right? The H2 receptor is found mainly in the gut. The H2 receptors are mainly found in the gut and are located in peripheral cells, which are responsible for the secretion of gastric acid, right? An increase in histamines will subsequently lead to an increase in gastric acid secretion. This is why drugs such as Xanax were developed, essentially. The drugs are used to decrease the release of gastric acids and help the condition such as peptic ulcer and so forth. So the H2 receptor is mainly found in the gut and has to do with gastric secretion. The H3 receptor is mainly found in the central nervous system and is unique in the ability to inhibitory receptors, mostly found in the central nervous system. They are part of the negative feedback loop that inhibits histamine synthesis and release. They've also been shown to inhibit other neurotransmitters such as dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin. So if this inhibits serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, and dopamine, what will that do to our mood, right? When we have high histamines in our body, what does that do to our mood, right? Think about it. Blocking the H2 receptor in animals has been shown to increase anxiety. When the H3 receptor is blocked, histamine synthesis and release are no longer inhibited, causing an increase in histamine, which makes sense, right? So it's been thought that these histamines are thought to be led to anxiety, right? So the reason why is this. Due to the H2 receptor effect on neurotransmitters, has been implemented in other mental disorders and so forth, such as ADHD, Alzheimer's, and even schizophrenia, which is quite interesting and something to definitely look into. It's in the early stages. H4, which is the last one, is mainly found in the bone marrow and basophils. It is responsible for releasing neutrophils into the bloodstream from the bone marrow, as well as mast cell chemotaxis. Mast cells are immune cells that are loaded with heparin and histamines. They have major roles in allergies and apoptosis, right? So in a chain reaction, H4 receptors modulate the chemotaxis and leads to mast cell segregation, which upon releasing amplify amounts of histamines in a progress known as mast cell degradation, even eventually result in chronic inflammation and inflammatory disorders such as allergies, asthmas, and so forth, right? So as we can see, histamine is not just found in food, and we might get, look, see, it's still not red. There we go. You can see on there, I'm not intolerant to histamine. I don't have high histamines at the moment in my body, right? So it'd be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't tell you to scratch yourself. Don't hurt yourself. But if you want, that is a test that used to be used. And I guess now they use other tests to see histamine in your foods, right? But as we can see, histamine plays a huge role in the nervous system in the brain, right? Huge role in the nervous system in the brain, in the GIT, in the immune system, vascular system, even in the muscles, right? It plays a absolutely huge role. So what actually happens when you have too much histamines? Too much histamines can cause seasonal allergies, tolerant to pharmaceuticals, low sleep requirements. Because remember, the reason why low sleep requirements, what did I say histamine does at the start? Activates it, and then we take antihistamine, you fall asleep. So excess of histamines can cause low sleep requirements. If you don't need to sleep much, you may have high histamines. If you have anxiety, if you have depression, chronic alcoholism, headaches, paranoia, these are all excess. But like I said, where there is excess, there's always deficiency. What happens when there's insufficient histamines in your body? You have that kind of anxiety, but it's that free-floating anxiety. It's kind of not sure where it's coming from, kind of not sure where it is. It's kind of like just free-floating anxiety. That's how we describe it. You have low HCl stomach acid because what does histamine do? It assists with stomach acid production, right? Release, yes. Food allergies, chemical medicines, sensitivities, always wants more sleep. You always want more sleep. Schizophrenia, depression, binge eating, binge drinking, fatigue, brain fog, low libido, and social phobia, right? So not only are histamines synthesized endogenously and is also obtained through the diet, which I want to go through later, which types of foods, due to the action on certain microbes, histamine levels tend to be high in foods that require bacterial fermentation in their production. So this is what I'm trying to say is we're all hearing, drink some kombucha, have sauerkraut, have miso, have fermented foods. But is this causing you your signs and symptoms that may be causing you issues in your health? Is that right? Because you are having that kombucha, because you're having that bone broth, right? Another thing that we also take into consideration is histamine can also be made by specific bowel flora via the production of HDC, which converts the histidine in any protein that enters the bowel into histamine, right? So it could also be a bowel issue, right? So many things to talk about. Okay, so it is speculated the difference in levels of histamine that people can tolerate, right? It may be due to your genes. You may have a SNP, so-called SNP on your DAO receptor, diamine oxidase receptor. You might have enzyme, you might have a SNP on it, which may be genetically, you may be able to remove histamine out of your body as efficiently as someone else may be. So there may be a genetic issue there, right? Various abnormal physiological conditions, hormone changes, especially in women at various stages of the menstrual cycle and menopause. Medication can reduce the tolerance threshold of an individual. People with low histamine tolerance thresholds are designated histamine intolerant, right? Could be called as histamine intolerance, right? What essentially happens under normal circumstances, excess histamine may be in your body, but it is degraded by histamine N-methyltransferase, HNMT, right? In intercellular tissues such as bronchial thrombus. That's intercellular, right? And the intestine by mucosal enzyme diamine oxidase, which is DAO, right? DAO can also be released into circulation and is responsible for salvaging extracellular histamines after ingestion histamine-rich foods. When histamine levels from any source rise above a certain level, these enzymes should rapidly degrade the excess. So essentially what happens is we have all of these histamines, right? These enzymes, depends where it is, this enzyme comes and it removes the histamine, degrades it, right? But sometimes that does not occur the way it's supposed to, right? Either there's so many reasons why it may not occur, right? So the reasons why it may not occur may be due to excess consumption of high histamine containing foods and beverages. So you're just having too much and your body just can't deal with it, right? Consumption of foods that cause release of histamines directly from mast cells, which I'll talk about soon. You may have inflammatory bowel disease. You may have alcohol consumption, which blocks DAO activity. Think about that if you're having too much alcohol. Use of medications that block DAO activity. Deficiency in nutrients required for DAO function. Genetic reasons, which I've spoken about. Also gastrointestinal disease. Okay, so now that we know a little bit about histamines, what is supposed to happen without all of that scientific, for all those scientific words and scientific explanations, essentially what's supposed to happen is, let's say we eat a high histamine food, then what's supposed to happen is our body is supposed to break that down and not make it active. So remove that histamine out of our body, out of our bloodstream, right? That's all that's supposed to happen, right? However, that may not happen due to a number of reasons, as spoken: genetic, inflammatory bowel disease, not having nutrients, blocking it, and so forth. So what happens then is we have histamine in our blood. We have high histamine in our blood, right? So now, how can you know if you have a histamine intolerance or high histamines in your blood? Let's go through a number of issues that may result in this, and you're going to be shocked, because I was just as shocked as you are, because having all of these may mean that you may have a histamine issue. If you have any of these, it would be good to talk to your healthcare professional to get a better understanding, but here we go. Let's name them. Skin issues, inflammation, migraines, headaches, food environmental sensitivities, fatigue, abdominal cramps, abnormal menstrual cycle, anxiety, breathing problems, pink eye conjunctivitis, difficulty falling asleep, overstimulation, digestive disturbance, dizziness or vertigo, fatigue, flushing, headaches or migraines, acid reflux, hypertension, high and low blood pressure, itching, the hives, nausea and vomiting, nasal congestion, sinus problems, sneezing, rapid heart rate, tachycardia, temperature dysregulation, tissue swelling, hives, and so forth. As you can see, there's so many things I've just named on there that you might have even one of them or two of them, and it may be due to not being able to tolerate your histamines. So what do you do? If you can't tolerate your histamines, what can you do? Well, let's see the foods to have in your diet, the foods to avoid in your diet that may be resulting in histamine issues. Let's get into it. So a healthy diet contains moderate levels of histamines, right? So if we have a so-called normal diet, we're supposed to have some histamines, because as we saw earlier, having low histamines is actually not good either. Having high histamines is not good either. We're supposed to have a balance, right? Our body knows homeostasis. Our body knows what the right balance is. It knows what to do. But sometimes that goes out of whack because we're taking some type of medication. We're drinking too much alcohol. We're blocking enzymes. We're having too much histamine foods. We're overindulging. We're sometimes even underindulging in a sense, if that's what you want to say, right? So what are some high-rich foods? I bet you're asking yourself. All right, so some high histamine foods, straight histamine into your body. Some foods are alcohol and other fermented beverages. So what that means is that little kombucha that everyone's saying is amazing actually may be doing you harm, right? Fermented foods and dairy products such as yogurt, sauerkraut, and so forth. What I've been told, the things that I've just spoken about, kombucha, yogurt, sauerkraut, we're told to eat this all the time. Why? Because it's supposed to be good for us, right? It's supposed to be good for us. But in over excess, nothing is good for us. Dried fruits, avocados. Think about it. Everyone's like, avocados are amazing. Eggplant, spinach, processed or smoked meats, shellfish, and aged cheeses, fermented aged cheeses, right? So think about what I just said. I didn't mention deep fried chips, right? I didn't mention processed things and so forth. I actually spoke about healthy foods. Eggplant, avocado, spinach are healthy foods, but these are high histamine foods. So in the morning, let's say you wake up, you're like, I'm going to eat so healthy. I'm going to have a little bit of a yogurt with dry fruit. Amazing. I'm going to lunchtime, I'm going to have an avocado, eggplant, spinach, salad with some smoked meat, let's say, and then some cheese. That is high histamine. That is an abundance of histamine right there in your diet just from that one day, thinking, you're eating pretty healthy, which you are. But these signs and symptoms that you may be having, such as hives, allergies, a nasal drip, overstimulation, anxiety, and so forth, may be caused because of your diet, right? Okay, so there are also some foods that trigger histamine release in the body, right? So those foods are high in histamine. These foods are triggering histamines, right? Alcohol, bananas, tomatoes, wheat germ, beans, papaya, chocolate, citrus fruit, nuts, especially walnuts, cashews, peanuts, food dyes, and other additives. So that is interesting again. Bananas, healthy, right? I was going to say alcohol, healthy, right? But papaya, chocolate, yummy. Okay, so see, you have things that are activating histamine in your body, right? And then I remember, I don't know if you listened to me at the start, but I did say that DAO may be blocked by some foods, and we need DAO. Why do we need it? Because it's going to remove that histamine, right? It's going to remove that histamine right out there. It's going to be like, take it out and remove it, right? But what are some foods that actually block that actual DAO? Okay, so things that block DAO production are, again, alcohol, black tea, mate tea, green tea, energy drinks. These are some things that block DAO. So as you can see, alcohol is mentioned in all of them, which is quite interesting. Alcohol is not only high histamine, it not only triggers histamines, it also blocks DAO. So you have a trifecta right there, bam, 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 right there, giving you high histamines in your body dramatically. So you may think about it, why do you feel absolutely yucky in the mornings after you've had so much alcohol. Of course, there are so many other reasons why you may not feel that great, but one of the main ones may be due to histamines, right? What are histamines doing in your body? Why do you not sleep that well if you have too much alcohol? I know some alcohol puts you to sleep, but other alcohol just gets you revved up and you're unable to sleep. You have that fast heartbeat and so forth, that anxiety and so forth, right? So what do you eat, right? If you scratched your skin and you found, you may have high histamines, or you've got your healthcare professional to check your diet, sees high histamine, or you've got a test out, you've got high histamines, you've got intolerance and so forth. What do you eat, right? Well, I would highly suggest talking to a healthcare professional, but these are some of the things that you can eat. Clearly things that are not as high in histamines or that block DAO or so forth, right? Fresh meats and fish, if that's what you eat. Non-citrus fruits, eggs, gluten-free grains such as quinoa and rice, dairy substitutes such as coconut milk and almond milk, fresh vegetables except tomatoes, avocados, spinach and eggplants, cooking oils such as olive oil. So that to me kind of overall sounds like a Mediterranean diet, right? Except those heavy tomato and heavy eggplant, right? But that kind of sounds like a Mediterranean diet to me. So essentially, if we look at the basis of a Mediterranean diet, olive oil, fish, meat, eggs, rice, quinoa, and so forth, this is what is considered as the top notch at the moment, especially in research. The Mediterranean diet is seen as the diet to follow. It's seen as the diet to follow in many things that I talk about. I've spoken about so many other conditions throughout this podcast, and here I am talking about histamines, right? And the thing with histamines is that you need to ensure that you know what foods have histamines in them, so you're aware of it. So you're aware next time you have that drip nose, next time you have those hives, that itchiness, next time that you have that anxiety, next time you have those headaches or migraines, the acid reflux, the itching, the sinus problems, the sneezing, anxiety, fatigue, so forth, that it actually may be a histamine issue. It may be due to histamines. So what would I suggest? Well, I would suggest talking to a healthcare professional, but also trying to exclude high histamine high histamine foods, and see what effect that actually has on your health. Does your headache go away? Does your migraine go away? Does your sinus go away? Your sneezing, itching, and so forth, does that all go away? There you have it. Spoke about histamines. Now you know what histamines are, what H1, H2, H3, H4 receptors have to play in our body. You know the signs and symptoms of histamine intolerances. You know what our body is supposed to do with histamines. And then you know what foods are high in histamines, what foods trigger histamine release, and what foods block DAO production. So there you have it. So the thing that I would suggest is talk to a healthcare professional. Get your genes tested if that's what you're interested in, to see if you have a SNP in there. Try the diet, go for it. Educate yourself so you achieve optimal health. There you have it. Do what you do best. Love, like, share. Share this episode with someone who may have this and has never heard about histamines before and has no idea what histamines are. Share this with them. You may actually change their life. You may help them with their health. Do what you do best. Love, like, share, subscribe to the Natural Health Podcast. Until next Monday, love you.